Hey everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a little bit of stenciling with the Simon Says stamped FANFARE stencil. Now I've had this stencil in my craft room for quite some time and I needed to make a few cards. So I thought I would do a tutorial showing you each way how I created the cards by just using one stencil. Now the stencil is rather large, so it's going to make a great 5x7 card, but you can also trim this down to be a regular standard size card. Now I am using Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock for all of my ink blending today, and I am going to use some purple tape to hold this in place. I do try to line this up as good as I can in order to have that design straight on that paper. Once I have that taped to the back, I can go ahead and start my stenciling. For my first card, I decided I wanted to do a monochromatic kind of look. So I am using 3 colors of ink from Simon Says Stamp, Latte, Cappuccino, and Mocha. And this is going to give me a great gradient card. Now I needed a few cards, so I decided this would be a great masculine card. So what I'm going to do is just come in on one side and start bringing in that lighter color. Now I did speed this up because I'm just doing, simple ink blending on my card panel. So now since I have that one area done, I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more, clean off my brush. I'm going to flip over that stencil and bring in the darkest color from the bottom. That's going to allow me a chance to add in that middle tone, but I know that I'm going to have the lighter and darker right where I need them, and I can just fill in the center. So once I have that mocha done, I'm going to lightly clean off my stencil, and then I'm going to come in with the cappuccino color. Now this cappuccino color is going to work perfectly between those two shades. So I'm going from a very light to a dark, and my cappuccino is my middle shade. Once I have this all blended, I always make sure to clean off my stencil, and I'm just going to go back in and darken up the top just a tad bit. I want to make sure that I have enough ink on all of the stencil, so I kind of took a peek and then I realized I needed just a little bit more ink in the center. Once this is done, I can peel this back and you're going to see that gorgeous gradient. So I'll grab it from the corner and look how gorgeous that is. So I went from the lightest shade down to my middle shade, down to my darkest shade. And this gives it a really nice gradient blend. All right, let's start working on the second card. Now for my next card, I did bring in my Make Art magnetic sheet, and this has some really strong magnets. So I decided to hold my stencil in place with the magnets this time instead of just using the tape. So once I have another piece of paper trimmed down, and this piece of paper is going to be larger than what I need, and that's okay because again, I'm going to trim this down. I'm using the same stencil, but decided to bring in some happy ink colors. This is Watermelon, Lemonade, SEAFOAM, and Carnation. Again, these are vibrant colors from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to first come in with the watermelon color, and I'm going to tap that off on my mat first before I bring it to my paper. So again, I want a really nice gradient on this, so I'm going to build up my colors. So I'm first going to come in from the top and build in that gorgeous watermelon color. I always make sure to kind of tap it off on the mat before I bring it to my paper, just so I don't get like really harsh lines. So I went ahead and I'm just speeding this up, adding in that color, and then I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to go to the opposite end of that paper, and I'm going to start with that carnation color. This way I know that I'm going to be able to have the top and the bottom colors without losing an area. So once I have that together, then I can work my way in. I kind of like doing this when I'm doing gradients just to make sure that I have an opportunity to have all the shades I want on the paper. Now, the Lemonade and the SEAFOAM is going to help me to create 2 additional colors. So I'll bring in that Lemonade, And I'm going to make sure to put down this lemonade right next to the watermelon color. That's going to give me a really nice orange. And I'm going to pull that down so I can add some of the seafoam a little bit later. Now I want to bring back in a little bit more of that watermelon color just so I can blend and get that secondary color, that orange, between that lemonade and that watermelon color. This is really great when you know what colors are going to create that third color. So anytime you use red and yellow together, it's going to blend into the center and it's going to make an orange. So remember, if you don't have all the ink colors, just get colors that you know are going to blend into a third color. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean off my mat and I'm going to bring in that seafoam. Now the seafoam is going to mix with the carnation. It's going to give me a purple, but then it's also going to mix with the yellow, which is going to give me a nice shade of green. So I went ahead and I started building up that color, and I'm making sure to bring that color up into that yellow. That's going to give me that limey color green that I'm looking for, but I'm also going to have that teal color, and I'm also going to have that purple tone as well. This is a great way to stretch out your supplies, even if you don't have all the colors in your arsenal. So as you can see, adding a little bit more of that yellow, I was able to get like a lime green right down the middle. And then again, adding that seafoam color to that carnation color, I'm able to get a pretty color of purple. I love being able to do this kinds of blends that don't require me to have all of the ink colors. Now, once I have those ink colors blended, I am using a little bit of adhesive to stick down my paper to my mat. I will bring back in that FANFARE stencil, and now I'm going to kind of do a tone on tone. So whatever ink is left on my blending tool, I'm just going to go back over those sections. So I'm going right back over that watermelon color, and then I'm going to come in with that lemonade color. And this is going to give me a really pretty tone on tone. Now, this is what's so great about using one stencil like this, is that you can get a great variation of color with one stencil. So as you can see here, I'm doing like a really nice rainbow, but it's going to be a tone on tone rainbow compared to what we had last time, which I had a gradient color. So once I finish adding in that carnation, I can lift up this stencil, and you're going to see I'm going to have a gorgeous tone on tone look. And the magnets really did help to keep this stencil in place. So look how pretty that is. It just gives me a little bit of detail in that color blend instead of it just being a solid color blend. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set this piece aside, and we're going to work on our third card. Once again, I have a larger piece of cardstock, and I'm using the stencil again. This time I did put some pixie spray on it, and this is going to help this stencil stay in place. The first time I used tape, second time I used my Make Art board, and now I'm just using pixie spray. Now for this card, I wanted tons of glitter, so I'm using some Gina Glitz glitter gel. Now I have this in rainbow-ish colors, and I'm going to make sure to be able to apply all of these colors on here. So again, remember I showed you that I always start at the top and the bottom of my cards. That way I know I can add my colors in between. That's exactly what I'm going to do with this. So first I'm going to come in with this gorgeous red color. And once again, I'm starting at the top of my stencil. Now when I'm doing this, I make sure to really clean off my palette knife before I go into the next color. This is a great way to blend your colors, but you really don't want to have a dirty spatula when you're doing this. So as you can see, I came in with the purple, and now I'm coming in with the orange, and now I can come in with this gorgeous blue. And again, I'm overlapping those colors and making sure to clean my palette knife. Then I come in with my green, and you can already see how gorgeous this is going to be. Now I don't have yellow, so instead I used gold, and that's really going to come off as yellow on my card. Once I have everything completed and I know I have it totally covered, I just make sure to go back one more time to fill in any areas that I see that might not have the Glitz glitter gel on there. And now I can pull back this stencil. I think this might be my favorite card. I'm very gingerly pulling this back, and then look at all the sparkle this left on this card panel. So this is a great way to use this stencil. Make some card panels, and maybe you don't want to use them today, but you'll have them in your stash to use for later. All right, I went ahead and started making some cards with this. I trimmed everything down so I can have 4 cards. So I'm going to set everything aside, and I'm first going to start with the rainbow one. I trimmed down this panel, and I'm going to turn this into a happy birthday card. So I trimmed down the panel that I can have a nice black border around it, because I always think like rainbows with black borders really makes the rainbow kind of stand out a little bit more. And I'm just using some glue here to adhere this down to that black cardstock. Now, if you wanted to not have the black cardstock and just keep your border white, you could do that as well. Or if you just wanted it to be full on the card panel, it will look just as gorgeous. But this way, when you have these panels ready and handy in your stash, you can go ahead and easily just throw on a couple of sentiments and have great cards. Now, I did use liquid adhesive as well on the happy birthday, and I made sure to dab that dye off first on a piece of scratch paper just to make sure that this glue didn't go everywhere. I did make sure to use my tweezers to line everything up and not get my hands full of glue. So we have a beautiful happy birthday card, and I'm just going to put this right onto a white card base. I always make sure to cut down white card bases and keep them handy in my room, as well as having these kind of backgrounds already ready to make simple cards. Sometimes I just don't have time to get in my craft room to make a bunch of cards. So by doing backgrounds in advance, all I have to do is find a sentiment to place on top, and my cards are ready to go. So now we have this gorgeous rainbow birthday card that is now going to go in my birthday card bin for the next time I need to send out a birthday card. Now, I did want to keep this nice and simple by not adding really anything else to this card. I really want that rainbow background to show the magic, but I did decide to put a little bit of sparkle onto my stacked sentiment. Now, this sentiment is done in black cardstock as well, and it's just stacked up 3 layers thick. And we have a gorgeous, sparkly little birthday card. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and let's work on our monochromatic card. Again, I use the same exact stencil. I went ahead and trimmed down this panel and stamped off some sentiments. So again, this one panel that I had now gave me the opportunity to create 2 cards. So remember, if you're starting with a larger card panel that you have stenciled, break that one piece down so you can get 2 cards out of it. That way you have 2 cards again sitting in your stash ready to go out to some friends. I did do 2 shades of brown cardstock for this, and I'll make sure to link everything below. And I used, I believe this was a Simon Says stamp, Friends stamp set. Again, it'll be linked below. And I just white heat embossed it on a really dark, more of a chocolate brown cardstock, so it kind of stood out. But I did make sure to match my browns, my brown cardstock, with the color of ink I had. I'm very into making sure when I'm doing my cards, I already have a palette in mind. So I know that when I start to make that card, that palette's going to be pretty. And then there's no second guessing. I always make sure to pick out my stamps, my palettes, and design my cards before I start making my cards. It just makes it really, really easy to start putting those cards together. So I'm going to go ahead and place these as well onto white card bases. And these are just the standard A2 size card. So again, I have stash now, or 2 extra cards to put in my friend stash of cards. So when I need to send a card out to a friend, I already have it created. So again, making those quick and easy backgrounds are going to help you when you might not have time to create cards. In this case, all I would needed to do was to back this and put a sentiment on it, and we would have been done. All right, let's go back to our last card. This is the third card, and I'm going to keep this as a 5x7 card because I really don't want to trim this down. I think this sparkle is so pretty. Now, what was so great is I had trimmed down that other rainbow background that we had, and it had just a little piece left over. And look how pretty this looks at the bottom of this card. All of the colors line up with all of the glitter paste. It is perfect for this card. So again, I'm not going to let that little piece go to waste. I'm going to go ahead and pop that on the bottom of this card. So again, this is going to be a 5x7 card, so it's going to be larger, but because I started off with that 5x7 piece of cardstock, I was able to keep this little border and attach this to the bottom of my card. So look how pretty that is. I do want to trim down the sides, I think. Not so much the top and bottom, but I just want to kind of even up my sides. So I'm going to bring in my little trimmer here, and I'm just going to trim off a little bit from the purple side. And then I'm also going to trim just a little bit on the red side. And this is just going to allow a little bit of the card base to show through on the ends. So I'll go ahead and trim that down. And now when I put this on my card base, I'm just going to have a little bit of white poking out on the sides. And I think that just gives this a really nice graphic element. All right, I wanted to add a little bit of gold to this. So I do have a tiny little strip of gold paper here, and this is like mirror paper. And I'm just going to add some adhesive and pop this right along the bottom of my, or the top rather, of my gradient color. I think just kind of breaking up this pattern with that gold really helps the card kind of ground itself a little bit more. So I add a little bit of adhesive to the back of that little strip, and then I can go ahead and place that on the top. And this to me just kind of gives a border to that rainbow piece we have at the bottom. And it kind of just gives your eye a place to land before you start seeing everything above it. Now, once I have that on there, I can just go ahead and grab my scissors and just trim off the rest of that gold. Now, to keep with the gold theme, I also die cut out You Are Loved die, and this is from Altenew. And I've done it several times in white, and then I also did it in gold. And this way I'm able to stack up that sentiment so it kind of pops off of my card. Now, because I had Glitz glitter gel on here, I really could not stamp a sentiment. So by having a stamped or a stacked die cut, it's going to really help me with adding a sentiment. Now, you also could, if you wanted to, just stamp a sentiment on white and trim it out. But I really like using these larger dies to fill in a card nicely. Now this here is, I believe it's 4 white layers, and then I'm going to have the gold. So you're going to see that this is going to be a really thick sentiment, and it's going to stand up to the graphic design of this card. Now once I had that adhesive on there, I can go ahead and add on that gold piece. And using my tweezers really helps me to get this lined up. So once I have everything in place, I'm just going to pick it up and kind of shift everything around. And then you're also going to see that little bit of white peeking out behind that gold. Now you can also do this in black, stack it on black, and I think it will look just as gorgeous. Now that fills up this card nicely, but really doesn't distract away from the Glitz glitter gel in the background. So one more time, I'm going to add some wet adhesive to the back of this, and I'm going to use a generous amount because this is a Glitz glitter gel, and sometimes trying to get something to stick to the Glitz glitter gel might be a little bit difficult. So I made sure to use enough glue that I know this is going to stick. So I'll go ahead and gently press that down with my hands. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my gliding tool and really press that down into the card so I know that that sentiment is not going to fall off. Now look how pretty that card is. Again, this is the third card, but remember, we only used one stencil. So now we have a rainbow of cards that we can put into our stash and have ready for friends. Now again, this is a 5x7 card, so this is a little bit larger, so I do require a larger envelope for this. I would go ahead and put that down onto the white card base. And now we have some gorgeous cards that I can mail off to friends. So I just used my glide tool, and I do have a little bit of a rough edge here on the bottom, so I'm going to grab my scissors and just trim off some of that Glitz glitter gel. Now we have all of our cards are complete, and now I have cards, remember, to put into my stash that I can have for a later date. But just make sure to use those supplies you have, make up some backgrounds, and then all you have to do, again, is to place sentiment on it. So here are the cards that we made today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. And I hope I've inspired you to pull out those stencils and use different products to make them shine. All right, everybody, I will see you in another video soon. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.